Are you one of those dungeon masters that really like those well thought out villains that feel more like NPCs or even PCs for you as a dungeon master to play, full of schemes, and it can really lurk from behind the curtain and do all kinds of crazy stuff, and you need your players to have some lengthy sessions to investigate and to go and take care of this villain? Or are you a dungeon master that is on the other end of the spectrum, and do you really like those big ass monsters that just leave a wake of destruction behind them and cause nothing but fear everywhere they go, and you just need your players to go in, finish a deal, and come back out? Well, for both these types of dungeon masters, there's one book that is really worth your money, and it is full of content. It is, of course, called Tyrants and Hellions. Before I go into my review and in-depth look of this thing, there's something I need to state, and that is this thing is produced by 2C Gaming, and that means two things. First of all, 2C Gaming, thank you so freaking much for sending this thing to me. This 300, I think it's 300 pages. Okay, it's exactly 300 pages thick tome of villains and minions and stuff like that. I mean, it is amazing that you sent this stuff to me, and I'm really thankful. But more importantly, you, the viewer, you can get 10% discount on anything from 2C Gaming. I mean, anything you buy from them on their websites, you get 10% discount. Just fill in my promo code TRSQ, which is Tarask, of course, where the coupon code thingy goes. Just TRSQ, and you'll get 10% discount. And while you're at it, pick up the Total Player Kill Handbook, the TPK handbook, because that thing is freaking amazing. And now there's another thing you'd really like. So once again, TRSQ while filling it out. Link is in the description below. So first of all, what is Tyrants and Hellions? Well, Tyrants and Hellions is a book, a module created, well, actually produced by 2C Gaming and written by Steve Gordon and some other people. It is 300 pages thick, and it is full of masters and big-ass villains and their minions. So it kind of reminds me, well, it reminds me a lot of a book I've reviewed in the past called Masters and Minions, which, by the way, is an amazing book, and it is the most amazing cover I have in my collection. The cover of that book is just beyond anything. I mean, it's just amazing. But although it reminds me of this one is kind of the same idea, the same deal, but this one is just way bigger, and there's just way more in here than there is in Masters and Minions. But it has one little downside against Masters and Minions, but I will talk about that in a bit. First of all, let's just see what it's all about. And for some reason, I keep saying Tyrants instead of Tyrants. And I actually Googled it, and it should be Tyrants. But I just keep saying Tyrants. I don't know why. But I am from Belgium, a magical land somewhere in Europe where we leprechauns and fairies live happily together, and we cannot pronounce common words like tyrants. So the book actually houses 15 very interesting villains and big-ass monsters for your players to compete against. And they're split up into enough tiers, and there's enough for your players to go from level 1 to level 20 just using these villains. These villains are from all kinds of levels, from level 1, from level 5, 10, 15, 20, everything is in here. Each villain has their own backstory, each villain has their own lore, their own minions, their own tactics, and of course their own artwork. And they've been smart about splitting up the villains into 3 different kinds. And there's the first kind, of course, being tyrants, which are the villains that are more smart and lurk behind the curtain and are like all schemy and doing all kinds of stuff and sending their minions in to die and fight for them. Then there's Hellions, which are the big-ass monsters like Tarasks, but there's not a Tarask in here, of course, but like Tarasks. Big monsters that leave a lot of destruction. And then the third kind are archvillains, which are a combination of the two. So the book should actually be called Tyrants and Hellions and Archvillains. But that just wouldn't make any sense, and it wouldn't be cool enough, and there wouldn't be any place for artwork on the cover. So they just named it Tyrants and Hellions. Let's just skip through one of these villains in the book front to back and look at each page of this particular villain, just so you can get a good sense of how freaking fleshed out these villains actually are in this module. The first one in the book is called the Ashen King, who is actually a demon fiend kind of creature that disguises itself as a tiefling just to stir up conflict and be a major pain in the freaking ass. That's kind of a summary of what he does. It is the first one in the book, so let's just skip through it. The first page is, of course, you get a summary, you get personality, you get background, you get goals and motives, you get tips on how to introduce the villain into your campaign. So all kinds of stuff for you as a dungeon master to really become this villain and start playing this villain almost as if it was your own character that you're playing. There's so much information in here that you can really, as a dungeon master, become this this enemy, this arch villain, or this tyrant, or this hellion. Of course, there's a big ass page with artwork that introduces it to the players or you as a dungeon master while reading it, so you can get a sense of who he actually is. Then, of course, there is tips on how to role playing him. There's more information about what he is, why he does it. There are some disease stuff. This is very particular to this villain. I will not spoil too much of it. I'm just doing this to give you an idea of how much there actually is. Then there is more information about the minions, how many minions you should use on what kind of level of party you are running. For example, level 1 parties could be against 2 cultists and 2 talks, or 1 quasit and 1 talk, or that kind of stuff. Then there are 4 or 5 schemes that you can do with this villain. For example, scheme number 1 is infect a test population. Scheme number 2 is divert attempts at a cure. Scheme number 3 is a favor to a friend. There's all kinds of schemes this demon fiend type of dude can run and can really mess with your players. I mean, it's still the same villain. I mean, it's still the same. There's rumors, there's all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of artwork in here. And then there is, of course, its lair or a place your players can go. It's all mapped out. The rooms of this lair are all, of course, described into this book with numbers, the way we like it as players, as dungeon masters, the way we like it as dungeon masters. Then, of course, there are stat blocks for the minions that this villain likes to use. There is a stat block for the Ashen King himself. There's more mapped out content for your players to explore. Then there is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 types of minions, all with their own stat blocks, with their own actions, with their own weaknesses, with their own strengths, just the way we like it from a proper monster manual. But these just belong to the main villain you are running at that moment. And then there is a new villain. So I'm talking about almost 25 pages full of content about one freaking villain, and you can take your players among more than one level. I'd say for this one you can take them like from level 1 almost all the way up to level 5, I think, just by running this villain and becoming this villain as a dungeon master. You can create entire campaigns or entire storylines around one villain, and that's what this book is all about. And of course, you cannot have a book with villains without having a proper dragon. And this one is called Emin Rex. Emin Rex is a big-ass dragon that likes to kill stuff, probably. And I just want to read a small piece from this book to you people, just to give you an idea about how 2C Gaming is really aiming for you as a dungeon master. Not really master the statistics of the villain you are running, but more becoming this villain you are running for your players, so they really feel scared or annoyed or whatever. For example, role-playing as Emin Rex. Emin Rex is even more of an egomaniac than most dragons. Pause before answering questions and hold eye contact intensely with your players when speaking to their characters. Maintain eye contact while waiting for them to answer, then turn away while considering your response. Keep a satisfied smirk on your face. At all times, speak slowly and though in total control of the situation. Avoid fillers like or and try to replace them with a drawn out with as much arrogance as you can master. and I'm really good at being arrogant. Now, as a reviewer, I have to talk about some of the downsides that I see with the module that I'm reviewing. And I'm actually only seeing one downside, and I'm probably weighing on it way too much, but it is just something for me, and I've always had that. For me, it is, as a dungeon master especially, it is so freaking important, and that is the artwork. And I absolutely love the artwork. That is not a problem. Every piece of artwork in this book is actually amazing. That's not a problem. I love this artwork of this big ass minotaur sitting on a throne, although a little dark for me to show to you through a camera. It is actually an amazing piece of artwork, very well drawn. The artists that draw this are very well talented. That's not a problem. And I also love this artwork. I mean, this artwork kind of feels old school, like reminds me of 2nd edition and the start of 3rd edition. Those small modules all had these kinds of simple black and white artwork, which I absolutely adore. And then there is this, which is a map, which is cool by itself. Again, it is very cool. Problem is, it is not consistent. And Again, I'm probably weighing too much on this, but for me, artwork in a book, in a module, needs to be consistent in a way. Take, for example, I know I'm comparing this to Masters and Minions because the book goes out from the same ID. Masters and Minions has some of the most amazing artwork in the history of Dungeons and Dragons, but more importantly, it's all consistent. When I open this book, I feel that I am entering one universe. Or when I open a book by, say, Kobold Press, I feel like I am going into Midgard, because everything from Midgard they are creating has, although there are different creators and different artists that create the artwork, it all feels like it's part of the same universe, and it doesn't in this book. I mean, I showed you a map earlier in this video from the first villain in this book, and the map was something totally, completely different from this. And I get that as a creator, you're trying to have maybe handout type of maps, but there's just so much artwork in here, and you can, of course, there's more than one artist that draws the artwork, but these artists that drawn the artwork for this module, they all have a different style, and they're all very talented. Again, I am not complaining about the art, I'm complaining about the consistency of the art. Now I will stop ranting about the consistency of the art and we'll go through with my review. By the way, whoever drew this, awesome. So again, this book holds 15 very, very interesting villains for you as a Dungeon Master to run. And it is very hard for me with these kinds of books to talk about it and give my opinion without spoiling too much. So let's just say each villain is very well thought out. There's enough stuff for you to run with as a Dungeon Master, and you can really go really in depth into their lore, and you can really run with their schemes, or you can just pick up a stat block from their minions or from them and just run with it and do your own thing with it. You're free. It is Dungeons and Dragons after all. The book on the back, it claims that there is enough content to take one group of players all the way from level 1 to level 15 with just using this book. And although I thought at first that was a big claim, and it still is a big claim for a third-party module, I actually think that is true. It is, I think you can take a group of players from level 1 all the way up to level 15 and keep it interesting. So not using the same orc over and over again, because of course you can take any group of players from level 1 to level 15 by just using goblins if you want, but then you get this make love not Warcraft type of thing, and we don't want that in Dungeons and Dragons. We want to keep it interesting. So I think they actually do justice to this claim. But then, if you thought that was all, there is another very cool chapter to this book, which is called Villainous Archetypes. And you guessed it, there is a villainous archetype for every class of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition in this chapter. For example, there is the Tyranny domain for the cleric, there is the gladiator archetype for the fighter, or maybe you're just more of a blood caller, which is a sorcerer, or maybe you're just more of a Pact of the Imprisoned type of person, which of course is a awesome looking warlock. Something very well worth stating is that the creators of this module, 2C Gaming, have really thought about the different types of environments and settings we are playing in as players, as parties. And for example, there is this villain called the Nine-Tailed Kitsune, and I had to Google how to pronounce that, but I think I absolutely nailed it. The Nine-Tailed Kitsune lives in a Oriental type campaign setting thing. So if you like to play Oriental type campaigns, this one is perfect. I mean, there are all kinds of villains in here, but for Oriental type stuff, this is perfect. They even included a map with like the typical Oriental, I mean Japanese or Chinese or whatever type buildings, which is very cool. There is this complete village where everything is going down. So 2C Gaming has really thought about all different kinds of players, all different kinds of dungeon masters, and of course all different kinds of parties. Another thing needs to be said about the general outlook of this book, the way it is all set up. The normal text you see here is all the lore, all the shenanigans of, for example, the Silver Knight, a champion among orcs. But everything you need to access fast, or you really need to know fast, is all lighted up in these nicely made red squares. And of course you see that a lot in other books, even the official books do that, all these types of different squares where there's information. But I just often think creators don't do that enough, and this book, Tyrants and Hellions, actually does that very well. I mean, there's always this role-playing thing, there's always, like now for the Silver Knight, there is an entire square about the items of the Silver Knight, because that is a very important part of this villain, so they really light it out, and I think that is just some proper good writing. Oh, by the way, as soon as I start a new campaign, going from level 5 or level 6 or something, I will use the Silver Knight as my main villain to start with, because he's absolutely awesome. He's simple, yet cool, and he looks very, very destructive. So that was my review and in-depth look, I hope spoiler-free, but kind of informative, in-depth look into the new book from 2C Gaming called Tyrants and Hellions. Tyrants and Hellions. And I think it is an absolutely amazing thing, although the artwork is not really consistent everywhere. I mean, the cover is absolutely amazing. The writing is absolutely amazing. It is just, there's so much information in here, and there's just so much villains. I think you can use one of these villains. It's not like a monster manual where you use a monster once and then move on. It's more like you use one villain and its minions for a couple of levels, and there's really a story involved, and I mean, that's kind of amazing. It is very, very well fleshed out, very well fleshed out, and really, really worth your money. If you want to pick it up, make sure to click the link in the description below, which is just the website of 2C Gaming, so you can just also type in www.2cgaming.com, I think, and just order it. Use my promo code TRSQ while checking out, and you'll get 10% discount on buying this thing, or actually anything from 2C Gaming. It is very well worth your money. Also, the TPK handbook is very well worth your money. It is awesome stuff. Congratulations! You made it to the end of the video, which means you can now click one of these videos right here and be teleported to another one of my videos. And just for the heck of it, I will provide you with only 2C Gaming videos, because I'm reviewing a 2C Gaming book right now. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope your inspiration may guide you.